thanks for joining me, Paul Reed, the Teapot Monk, for this mini additional podcast released this month of March as part of the anniversary of the death of the Professor Cheng. And I've compiled a series of post videos and special course discounts on offer as part of this week's celebration. So go check out the link in the show notes for a range of goodies, including links with students and testimonial footage. For anyone unfamiliar with Cheng, he was one of the first teachers to devise his own short form, whilst many were still practicing forms of over 100, 200 postures. He decided it needed cutting down in length if ever it was going to appeal to more than just a handful of obsessional types who wished to devote their entire working lives to the study of Tai Chi. Of course, once he had done this, the world would never forgive him, especially those Tai Chi types obsessed with the study of Tai Chi. Anyway, before we get there, let's just rewind a little. The Cheng form derives from his studies with Yang Chen-fu, the grandson of the founder of the Yang style, someone called Yang Lu Chen. You can read more about these characters and their contributions in the martial arts history and parody. One last thing, a link I'll include in the show notes. Anyway, once Yang Chen-fu, you remember him, the grandson, had died, Cheng introduced his shortened version of the form, and it's said with the approval of senior students, but who's around now who can verify that? However, some disagreed with this shortening, and many still do, to tell you the truth, claiming Cheng set the Tai Chi world on a dangerous, slippery slope, turning the art away from being a lethal martial art towards a meaningless exercise for the masses. Yet others argue that he merely continued the work of all the previous great masters, spreading the art to a wider audience, making it more accessible, giving the world a practice that previously was only accessible to a select, incestuous, and rather privileged bunch. Was Cheng a Taoist stroke anarchist, you may reasonably be asking yourself at this moment in time? Someone working to topple the elites from within and redistributing power to those below? Was he dismantling the authoritarianism of hierarchy built into the martial arts history and structure, replacing it with one of fairness, of horizontal organisation? And no, I doubt it very much, for after all, he was a Confucianist scholar more than any Taoist or anarchist. Then again, he was a slippery dude with a wispy beard, and as such, it's difficult to pigeonhole these people. Whatever the truth, Cheng's shortened version of the form caught on like sliced bread, tea bags, or mobile phones after Samsung had copied the iPhone. Suddenly, Tai Chi's shortened versions were the thing, and they were in demand. In China, in Taiwan, in Southeast Asia, in New York. His students continued this legacy of adaptation and evolved the form whilst paradoxically claiming to remain loyal to his principles and intentions. Yet, when we look, this is the same story for all styles and all arts. One of proposed transformation, yet at the same time proclaiming loyalty to past teachers. So, what's the truth about forms and adaptations? Well, it's true that most teachers generally adapt their forms over the years, not necessarily because of the people they're teaching nor the place in which they teach, though these are reasons in themselves, but merely because if they're genuinely seeking the best in what they can offer, they themselves will continue to learn and evolve, and this inevitably will lead them to adapt and evolve their form as their knowledge and practice evolves. This has created a world of variation, subtle differences, and each will undoubtedly claim to be more authentic or real than the rest of them. But let's not forget that it's in the nature of Taoist practices. In fact, I would say it's an essential element of Taoist practices to be founded on continual revolution, re-evaluation, and change. But For the podcast, we want to look at the things that Cheng has changed that made his form his. From the original Yang style, we can see that he changed not only the number of repetitions, reducing drastically these moves, but also the dropping out numerous moves from the long form, some of which, as is the case with many practices, his students have since reintroduced. So what changes did he introduce that have remained? Well, by bending the back leg, for example, he softens the whole structure, which enables a more upright posture, changing it from an incline in the old Yang style to one of uprightness. He changed the stepping back footwork in Repulse Monkey to the parallel lines concept rather than stepping back in an in and out fashion. And he changed the angle of the wrist from those of tense and upright to one of curved and relaxed. And that final foot pull, that scraping of the back foot round when you complete a move, is unique to his style. All these were done with a specific purpose in mind, and you can discover these in the 37-step course on my website or by investigating this style more by yourself. So what of his legacy? It's been open to the idea of variations. He removed the idea of one exclusive way, one path, one direction. And what's attractive or not to you is dependent on a number of subjective points that I explore in the videos and texts on the celebratory page that I link to in the show notes. There you'll also find I've included a 10-minute video documentary on the man's long-term legacy, plus a 2-minute video recap of 8 essential points and links to video interviews with those that studied with him and knew him. And as for those variations and expressions, think of each as an accent enriching the whole language with such fascinating diversity. So what do you think? Should Tai Chi evolve, or should it stick to its roots? And are its roots adhesive enough to stop adaptation? Leave a comment and let me know what you think. Drop by the website www.21stcenturytaichi.com/Cheng Anniversary Tai Chi to see this special page, or find out more. Follow the link in the show notes. Thanks very much for listening, and I'll be back next week for another episode of Talking Tai Chi with the Teapot Monk. Looking to discover what Tai Chi can do for you, or curious and would like to know a little more? Well, just come over to 21stcenturytaichi.com. Look for the link in the show notes. There's short introductory courses, breathing, health, Tai Chi form, sword, philosophy applications and more, plus books, PDFs and great videos and even music. Got a question? Track me down on social media as the Teapot Monk. Thanks for listening.